Hi, boys and girls. It's me. Welcome back. And I got this thing working pretty well. I'm rather pleased with it. Played it a couple nights off and on. Tried to do a little DXing with it. Bands are certainly strange. Sometimes it's like any other time with radio listening. Sometimes the stations come in real nice and strong. Sometimes they're, kind of leaves your head scratching as to what's really going on with the ionosphere. But the radio itself is working real well. And I've got some kind of ugly knobs I just slapped on there. I just grabbed these. This isn't even the right knob, but I can use that for volume and tuning. Now we got to do the case. I did promise the owner, before he gave me all those radios, that I would do the case. And let me show you just what's involved with that. That's actually the hardest part of this whole thing for me. So I always save the best for last. All right, here's the original case as you see it. It's got a few minor bruises on it, but altogether it's in pretty decent shape. Stag's a little dried up and dirty, and that's to be expected for a radio that's probably 75 years old. And let me open this up. Let's have a look at the inside. The brass dial surround's in great shape, but we'll clean this up. Here's what I do. Now, I have to be careful with this because the G500 had some really odd things, and they were just kind of dependent on where they were put in the production run. And I don't know all the specifics. Let me get a pointer here. If you look at the top of the front cover, there's actually 4 screws holding the top of this in. Now, for my mental history of this radio, the early run radios did not have these screws. At least not on top anyway. There's 4 screws holding it in on the bottom where I'm pointing here. Because of one, the age of the radio, and 2, what plastics do after a number of years. I have to, right now this bezel is perfect. I have to be extremely careful when I put this back together not to over tighten these screws. If you have a transoceanic of any age, if someone has removed this bezel, you have to take great care in putting it back together, because these things could do one of 2 things. A, they shrink, and B, if you over tighten these screws, these things on this particular model anyway will shatter. Usually if they're over tightened, you'll see, like say on a 500 or a 600 series TO, you always see them just kind of spread. They get cracked and they spread out. Also, this particular radio has, you see this like white stuff over here? This is kind of ugly. I have to clean all that up as well. So I've got a lot to do here. I'm going to take this antenna out just so it's out of the way. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to have to take literally the top of this radio off here, this piece. And when I get it off, I'll explain why I'm going to have to do that. So the plastic pieces just kind of get cleaned and polished. The brass is going to get stripped and relacquered. Like this particular piece I have to be careful with as well, because this is the original clear see-through cover. And they do make them in repop, but I want to have the original, so I'm going to have to be very careful. I have to literally take this out, polish it up, make it all nice, put it back together. It's a lot of work. All the brass gets stripped and relacquered. Plastic parts get cleaned. I've got some crappy stuff up here on the wave magnet that I'm going to have to try to clean up. And then finally, the whole case has got to be cleaned and polished to make it look really, really, really nice. They'll make it like as new looking as it did in 1950. Let me stop talking and get started. I was in the middle of taking everything off the case, and then I forgot about something. It's not that I forgot. It was just kind of a tiny thing that'll save you a little aggravation. 2 things actually. One is that normally on, say, the H500 and 600 series radios, the nuts that hold this on are usually facing like this. There's usually 2 on here, and they're on the threaded rod that's on kind of built into a little piece of wooden block. But on the G500, I believe also on the HG series of earlier sets, they're on the inside. That's one difference. Okay. The second difference is normally when you're going in, I have to use a socket. This set of sockets belonged to my father. My father at one time was a diesel truck mechanic. And he worked for, I think, 1 or 2 international harvester dealers. But I noticed that one thing he did was, let me take the socket off the end of this. Looks like he ground the outside down, and that was just kind of to get in the tight areas. Well, this particular socket that I'm using right now, this is for a, this has a 5/16, meant to remove a 5/16 nut. And I think that's the case with these. The H500 and the 600 series radios, I have a second one in here. Let me pull it out to show you. No, that's not it. Where is it? There it is right here. This is 5/16. This is a 1/4-inch socket, and you see my dad, I didn't do this. My father actually did this. Ground the end of it down, and it was meant to get into tight spots like I have here. So there's a size difference, and then the G500 and the 8Gs, I have it rolled over so the studs are actually facing out the side like this, with this being the bottom. If it was the other radio, then they would be facing you, which kind of makes this a little harder, but as long as you have the right tools, if you decide to take the antenna off, that's what you're going to need. Okay? Okay, I have this pretty much prepped to start cleaning up. Okay? All the major stuff is off of it, except for this top piece here. I'm going to take this off later. I usually just start it like this because it just allows me to kind of get a lot of stuff cleaned up off this case. I just want to get the dirt and crap off it, and before I polish it up. But then I suspect, let me see if I can get this open without the light. Oh, this is going to be tricky. Let me get this open. I discovered something with the wave magnet here, the AM wave magnet. Okay, I needed 2 hands for that, so I had to put the camera down. Look at this. Wonder what, it's got a stud condom on here. So I wonder if there was something weird going on here. You know, there are, the H500 and the G500 have wires that run from the, well, it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but you can see the connector there. It's a little bit dark in there. That goes into the chassis, and then there are wires that run across the top of this. The hinge for the wave magnet actually is an electrical connection that runs across here, and then goes up in here, and then there's a wire from either side that goes up and around to this stud here, and makes the connections for the AM wave magnet. And I suspect that there's something weird with that. So I'm going to take this apart anyway later on. And when I do, to get this part clean in here and make this all nice, I'll show you the electrical connections so you know what you'll have to go through. But this is just a typical thing of the G500 and H500. It's also a pretty good thing to have all your parts in little containers. I love using these takeout food containers to put screws and small parts in there, and then I have an old brother P-Touch labeler that's probably 30 years old, 35 years old, and then obviously the antenna and the handle won't fit in there, but I'll have a spot to put them in. And I bought a P-Touch labeler at the swap meet, the Raceway Park swap meet, probably, I don't know, at least 20 years ago. Guy was selling them out of his space, and brand new, with a warranty no less. And that's where that came from. I kind of miss going to them for 2 reasons. The main reason is my uncle, who was kind of a big influence on me in electronics and old cars, he passed 4 years ago. And we used to go together in my station wagon later on, or wherever other car that we were getting ready to put together and drive around in. And of course, you know, the systemic failures of drag strips now all over the country, because now the damn property is worth way more than it is to have a drag strip and out of kids that want to tune their cars have to go out in the street. But this isn't a rant. This is a radio restoration. So let me move on to the slop sink. Okay, across from the shop I have a slop sink here. We call it a slop sink. I don't know what various areas of the world they call sinks by this, but this is the original soapstone sink, and I know people that pull these things out and put in them plastic tubs, and they're garbage. I mean, this thing probably weighs 500 pounds, but it's really, really good. So anyhow, getting back to this, here, let me take my watch off because I don't want to destroy my watch. The case for the G500 sitting on top of a yellow plastic bucket, so you can see it better visually. All the hardware is off it except for this piece here, which has the wiring and everything for the wave magnet on this hinged piece. And I'm going to take this off. I'm going to do the outside of this first and just show you what I do, and then eventually I'll let it dry overnight, and then what I'll do is I'll tomorrow morning or something I'll come in here and I'll clean up the inside of this. But and so this is the basics of the thing. Here, let me just hold this up to the camera so you can see. I mean, you can see where the dirt is, where the latch used to be that I took off. The latch on these are actually pretty easy because the screws literally go through the front of the thing. So it's a lot easier than any of the other radios, because the other radios have a covering and then you have to kind of carefully peel it back to get that off. So that was kind of easy. So we're going to wipe this whole thing down. I know there might be a little bit of loose stag and weird stuff here and there, but here's the magic. First of all, let me start out by saying I'm not plugging this, but this is my favorite cleaner. If anybody from Simple Green would like to send me free cases of it, I'll plug it till now to the end the cows come home. Some people don't like using this, but I love it. So what I'm going to do, just lightly spray all over the Simple Green. Even put some on the inside. Anywhere where there's some black stag hiding. Okay, I have to turn this a little bit. Get this side, a little bit on top here. And we get this side. Side that's probably not in the camera shot. Alright, so now here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let this thing sit for a couple minutes. About 3 to 5 minutes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sponge. It's kind of old and pseudo-ratty. When I get done wiping everything off on here, this thing's going to be black. It's not because of the case, it's because of the dirt. Gotta remember, I'm dealing with a 75-year-old radio here. So, let me let this thing sit, and then I'll bring the camera back up. All right, here we go. Let me just start with the top here. There he is. See that? Think I was kidding? I wouldn't kid you. So I just rinse it out under the sink and I just keep going. This does have an abrasive piece on the back, so that's where it's going to stay. I'm not going to, you just want to use a regular sponge. You don't want to use a hard abrasive. Now on the side you still get dirt, but it's, of course, being the top of the radio, it's more prevalent in that area for obvious reasons. You know, it's a kind of a gravity thing, you know. That's why I love my two cats, and they test gravity just about every day. Like yesterday, Berwin came up on the bench, and usually I'm sitting in my chair, and he'll come around, and he'll sit in my lap, and I give him pets, and tell him I love him, and all that good stuff, you know, and it's just a cat thing. But Mama was in there, and she called me away for a second, and on my chair, I wasn't sitting there, but he usually jumps to the top of my chair when I'm sitting there. What was sitting there was a Dremel and all my bits, and I was repairing something in the house, and he jumped up, and that was the end of that. Now here, I'm just going to wipe this. But I repeat this procedure a couple times. So anyway, when he jumps up, and it's just my Dremel and all my Dremel bits and everything were laying in a plastic box. Well, you know what happens with gravity. So the whole thing just flipped on the floor. And I didn't get mad. You know, it's just, that's what Berwin does. He jumps up on that thing and he wasn't aware of all my parts there, and it kind of scared him. So here, just so you can see what I'm doing. I think this was owned by a smoker, because I think as I'm wiping and wiping and wiping here, I'm seeing more and more cigarette residue come off, but it was really bad on top. But, you know, the case on this radio is actually very, very good. It's not perfect. It's, you know, it was used, but it's not surprising that, you know, between the condition of the radio, I mean, you saw me plug that radio in and fire it up on my Variac, and that thing took off. So I wasn't, I mean, this is the hardest thing to do. There's even some small paint flecks on here that I'm seeing. That's a common thing. People drag these things into their room when they're painting, but these will come off real easy. I went into that track a little bit in between. You see that piece of dirt there? That came off. So it's a lot of work, but you know, you'll see the end result. What I will do is that after I get all this cleaned up and I get the brass stripped and relacquered and everything is, you know, nice and shiny, all the bits, brass bits and everything are shiny, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buff this out with a really good boot polish. And I have some Kiwi boot polish. That's what I usually use. I even use that on Bakelite sets. And it's interesting. I've taken some really ugly Bakelite radios and made them look stunning just by polishing them up with just, you know, brown shoe polish. And the magic, you might say, well, you know, what that's no big deal. Well, no, it isn't. But the realism is that I was a plastics engineer for 30 years with an electrical background, which was kind of weird. But it actually came in handy because I was dealing with, nowadays, I was dealing with robotics and automation too. And this is actually cleaning up now. The more I wipe it, you see the more stuff is coming off. So, getting back to the radio, the magic of Bakelite is it's got oil in it. And that's how it was injection molded many years ago. But that oil dries up and the shoe polish has oil in it. It's an oil-based product. So as you're buffing it, you're actually taking oil from the shoe polish and putting it back into the finish. And it's a lot of buffing. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. But after you spend an hour or so on the average AA5, AA6 radio, oh, man, that thing comes out nice. It's really nice. So there you go. You can see, you know, this is what I've had to do now. So anyway, I'm just going to let it go here. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you would. And we'll move on to the next step. I think we're going to probably have to do this in two or three videos because I want to show you everything I do. People ask me constantly, how do you make those radios look so good? Well, it's a lot of work, you know. And I'm doing this gratis, but I'm also getting, well, probably at least 10 radios that are workable. I mean, there's a lot of parts there too. It gave me a lot of stuff, so. All right, and I'll even see if I can coerce the owner into a reveal. I think that would be really cool. And then put him in the video and see his reaction to this, because he's a super good guy. So anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye!